Let me give you a number that will probably make you want to punch your retirement calculator. $1,244 a month. That is the average unsubsidized ACA premium for a single 60-year-old in 2025, almost $15,000 a year. And here is the part that never makes it into the glossy brochures. You have to pay that or something close to it for 7 full years before Medicare shows up. That is $105,000 minimum just for health insurance before you see a single doctor. Think about that. You spend decades building a nest egg. You run the numbers. You convince yourself you can retire at 58. You have your portfolio, your withdrawal rate, your carefully calibrated spreadsheet. And then you discover that the spreadsheet quietly ignored the largest single expense you will face in those early years. The reason is simple. Most retirement calculators were designed by people who never had to buy their own health insurance. They plug in a generic medical expenses line item like it is groceries or utilities. But health insurance between 58 and 65 is not an expense, it is a wall. And the wall is tall. Here's the gap. You turn 58, you are done with the grind. You have a solid number in your brokerage account. Medicare eligibility starts at 65. That is 7 years where you are entirely on your own for health coverage. And the system is not designed to help you. The employer-sponsored plan you had for 30 years vanishes the day you walk out the door. Cobra buys you 18 months at best at $823 to $1,400 a month for an individual. Then you are in the ACA marketplace, where the premiums are age-rated. A 60-year-old pays roughly 2.5 times what a 40-year-old pays for the same plan. And if your income is a hair above the subsidy threshold, you eat the full cost. That is why you are still working. Not because you do not have enough money, not because your portfolio is too small, but because your retirement calculator never asked you about health insurance. It assumed you would be on Medicare at 65, hand-waved the years before that, and produced a number that looked good on paper. When you actually sit down to model it, the gap eats your margin. And so you grind an extra year, then another, telling yourself you need a little more cushion. But the cushion keeps inflating because the healthcare cost is invisible in the math. But the real trap is not the cost, it is how the system punishes you for having saved money. And that is where the story gets interesting, because here is where the math flips in your favor. You have been staring at that 7-year gap, the $105,000, and thinking you need another $200,000 in the bank to cover it. But here is what the retirement calculators are also hiding from you: the crossover point. Once your portfolio hits a certain size, the growth alone does the heavy lifting. You do not need to save another dollar from your salary. You need to let the compounding happen. Take a concrete example. You are 58 years old. You have $1.6 million in your portfolio. You decide to stop contributing entirely. You let that money sit and grow at 7% a year historical average, adjusted for inflation, conservative enough. After 7 years, when you turn 65, and Medicare kicks in, that $1.6 million has grown to $2.57 million. No additional contributions, no side hustles, only the market doing its work. Now subtract the healthcare bridge. Call it $15,000 a year for 7 years, which is $105,000 total. You pull that out of the portfolio along the way. Even after that, you are left with roughly $2.46 million. That is past most people's number. The crossover point is real. It means that for a lot of you, the healthcare gap is not a wall, it is a speed bump. The portfolio grows fast enough that the cost of insurance barely registers in the long-term trajectory. And if you are sitting on a portfolio that is close to that 1.6 million mark, you are probably already past the point where working another year adds more to your life than it takes away. Subscribe to the channel. I run the actual math for different portfolio sizes and ages in every video, so you can see your own crossover point. Here is the deeper mechanism. The crossover point works because the growth rate of your portfolio, 7%, far exceeds the withdrawal rate needed to cover the premiums. You are only pulling out about 1% of your portfolio each year for healthcare. Meanwhile, the other 6% is compounding. That spread is what makes the gap disappear. If your portfolio is large enough, the growth alone will cover the healthcare cost and still leave you ahead. It is not magic. It is the arithmetic of a portfolio that has crossed into self-sustaining territory. If you want to see how your own numbers shake out, subscribe to the channel. I break down the calculations for each age and portfolio size. So the crossover point is real, but there is a catch. The math works on paper, but the tax code has a trick that can undo it all. That tax trick is the gap between the math on paper and the wall you hit in real life. But let me walk you through the actual cost so you can see how manageable the bridge is if you plan your income correctly. And trust me, you can plan for it, the system just does not want you to know that. COBRA is the first option after you leave your job. You already know what an individual costs, but for a couple in their late 50s or early 60s, the average premium runs $1,646 to $1,800 a month. That buys you 18 months of the same coverage you had at work. After that, you are in the ACA marketplace, where the real strategy begins. The ACA marketplace is where most early retirees end up, and the numbers are less terrifying than you think if you understand the leverage. The national average unsubsidized premium for a 60-year-old runs $1,000 to $1,200 a month. That is the sticker price. But here is the key. If you manage your income to stay under 400% of the federal poverty level, subsidies can drop that to $400 to $600 a month. The 2026 threshold is $62,600 for a single person, $84,600 for a couple. Stay under that, and your monthly premium cuts in half or more. But the subsidies are not as generous as they were in 2025. In that year, a household at 200% of the federal poverty level paid only 2% of their income toward premiums. In 2026, that jumped to 6.6%. That is a 3.3 times increase in the share of income you must pay before any subsidies kick in. The average subsidized enrollee's premium more than doubled to $1,904 a year. So the system squeezed you, but it is still a fraction of the unsubsidized cost. You are paying about $159 a month on average after subsidies, compared to over $1,000 without. That is the difference between a wall and a speed bump. The point is that the bridge is manageable if you plan your income strategy. You can keep your modified adjusted gross income low by using cash from taxable accounts or Roth IRA contributions, avoiding big capital gains in any single year, and limiting Roth conversions to the years where you have room under the threshold. It is a puzzle, but it is solvable. The 7-year gap from 58 to Medicare at 65 does not have to cost you $105,000. It can cost you $50,000 or less, depending on how you play the income game. You are not helpless. You have more control than the retirement calculators let on. But here is where the system punishes you for being a saver. The subsidy cliff is not just a threshold, it is a trap that can cost you $14,000 a year if you accidentally cross it. And that is the next piece. But before you can use any of that data, you need to actually get your hands on your retirement money without the 10% early withdrawal penalty. And that is where most people trip up. They have a giant pile of cash in a 401k, but they are 58, not 59 and a half. And the standard rule says you pay a penalty if you withdraw before that age. So they think they are stuck. They are not. There are 2 tools that solve this. And the first one is sitting in the tax code, completely ignored by most financial advisors. The rule of 55. It is buried in section 72T of the tax code, subsection 2A5. What it says is simple. If you leave your job in the year you turn 55 or later, you can withdraw money from that employer's 401k or 403b without paying the 10% penalty. No need for complicated equal periodic payment schedules. No hardship waiver. You separate from service and the money stays in the plan. Then you take what you need. Since you are retiring at 58, you are already 3 years past that threshold, so the door is wide open. But here's the catch that will cost you if you miss it. The rule only applies to the plan you are currently working for. If you roll that 401k into an IRA when you leave, which is exactly what every broker will tell you to do because it gives you more investment options, you lose the penalty-free access forever. You also cannot use it on money from a former employer's plan. So if you have a rollover IRA from a previous job, that money is locked until you hit 59 and a half, unless you use other strategies. The rule of 55 is narrow, and it only works if you leave the money sitting in the active employer's plan. That means you need to keep that account open, not roll it, and you need to separate from service in or after the year you turn 55. If you already left a job at 53 and rolled the money into an IRA, that money is now trapped. The rule does not apply retroactively. So if you are still at the same employer, do not roll that 401k into an IRA when you leave. Leave it where it is. That is the escape hatch. The second tool is the Roth conversion ladder. It is more flexible, but it is also more dangerous because it interacts directly with the subsidy cliff you already know about. The idea is straightforward. You take money from a traditional 401k or IRA, convert it to a Roth IRA, pay income tax on the converted amount now, and then, after 5 years, you can withdraw that converted amount penalty-free. You build a ladder by converting a chunk each year so that after the first 5 years, you have a new rung maturing every year. That gives you a steady stream of tax-free, penalty-free withdrawals from age 58 onward. But the 5-year seasoning period is the first constraint. You cannot withdraw the converted amount without penalty until 5 tax years after the conversion. That means your first 5 years of early retirement must be funded from somewhere else. Cash, taxable brokerage accounts, or your Roth IRA contribution basis, which you can withdraw anytime because those are contributions you already pay tax on. If you have no bridge assets for those first 5 years, the ladder does not work. You need to plan the runway before you start the conversions. Now here's the trap that makes the ladder dangerous. Every dollar you convert adds to your modified adjusted gross income for that year. That income counts toward the 400% federal poverty level threshold for ACA subsidies. If you are converting $50,000 a year and your other income puts you near the cliff, a single conversion rung can push you over. The effective marginal tax rate on that conversion dollar can exceed 200% because you are paying ordinary income tax, state tax, and you lose the entire premium tax credit for that year. That is not a tax bracket. That is a penalty for being disciplined enough to save and convert. So the tools work, but only if you do not accidentally trigger the invisible bill. And that invisible bill is exactly what we need to talk about next. So that invisible bill is real. And it is worse than the numbers you already know about because the system is designed to punish you for having saved money. The enhanced premium tax credits expired on December 31st, 2025. And as of January 1st, 2026, the 400% federal poverty level subsidy cliff is back. The thresholds are $62,600 for a single person, $84,600 for a couple. Those are not suggestions. They are hard ceilings. $1 over, and you lose every dollar of premium tax credits for the entire year. Now let me show you the trap that makes this a betrayal of everyone who did the right thing. A 64-year-old couple with $2.9 million in assets. They are doing everything by the book. Their modified adjusted gross income is $58,000, comfortably under the $84,600 couple cliff. They qualify for full subsidies. They are paying about $515 a month for a benchmark plan. Then they decide to do a $50,000 Roth conversion. Smart move in theory, get that money into a Roth before required minimum distributions kick in. But that conversion pushes their modified adjusted gross income from $58,000 to $108,000. That is $23,400 over the couple cliff. The result? A $14,000 clawback of premium tax credits. They lose $14,000 in subsidies because of a single strategic move. The effective marginal tax rate on that conversion dollar exceeds 200% when you combine ordinary income tax, state tax, and the loss credits. 200%. You are not paying taxes. You are being penalized for being disciplined enough to save. And here is the part that makes me cynical. The cliff does not punish wealth. It punishes income display. A retiree with $3 million in assets, but $60,000 in modified adjusted gross income gets full subsidies. A retiree with $1 million in assets, but $85,000 in modified adjusted gross income gets nothing. The system rewards people who can hide their income, not people who saved less. That is the betrayal. You did everything right. You saved, you invested, you built a portfolio, and the tax code treats you worse than someone who spent it all and has a low income. Your financial advisor charges 1% of your assets every year to explain half of this. They will hand you a standard retirement plan with a 4% withdrawal rate and a generic healthcare line item, and they will never show you the $14,000 invisible bill because they have not modeled it. The cliff is a dollars and cents trap, and the people who are supposed to help you avoid it are often the ones who do not know it exists. That is the real reason you are still working past 58. Not because the math does not work, but because the system is designed to punish you for crossing an invisible line. The solution is not to work longer. It is to build a framework that accounts for the cliff. And that framework is exactly what we are going to build next. The Social Security Bridge strategy that can fund the gap without triggering the subsidy trap. Your financial advisor will not hand you this. They charge 1% a year of your assets to explain half of it. The real numbers are in a digital book I built called The Exit Code, an analysis of 50 years of retirement data distilled into a mathematical framework for exiting the rat race. It covers the $14,000 invisible bill, the insurance gap that destroys retirees under 65, and the Social Security Bridge strategy for waiting until age 70 without going broke. It also replaces the outdated 4% rule with a dynamic withdrawal method that actually accounts for market volatility. The framework turns maybe someday into a specific date. You can get it for less than a dinner out through the link in the description. So how do you use that bridge? The Social Security Bridge strategy is the most powerful tool in the arsenal for managing the healthcare gap without triggering the subsidy trap. Here is the math that most people never see. If you claim at 62, you get 70% of your full retirement benefit. If you wait until 67, you get 100%. If you wait until 70, you get 124%. That is a 77% lifetime increase in your monthly check. Let that sink in. You are not only getting a larger check, you are getting an inflation-adjusted income stream that grows with the cost of living for the rest of your life. The delayed retirement credits add 8% per year for each year you wait past full retirement age up to age 70. That is a guaranteed return on delay that no bond can match. The Bipartisan Policy Center ran the numbers and found that spending down your portfolio savings from 58 to 70 to defer Social Security significantly enhances retirement security and longevity protection. It is not about the larger check alone. It is about the fact that you are using your portfolio to buy a higher inflation-adjusted income floor that you cannot outlive. And here's the part that connects back to the cliff. The bridge strategy also solves your MAGI problem. By drawing down cash or taxable accounts during those early years, you keep your modified adjusted gross income low. You are not triggering large capital gains. You are not doing aggressive Roth conversions. You are not earning part-time income that pushes you over the threshold. You stay under the single cliff or the family cliff, and your ACA premiums stay manageable. The bridge years become a tax optimization window instead of a penalty zone. The difference between claiming at 62 and 70 is not a few $100s a month. It is the difference between a retirement income stream that feels like a steady drizzle and one that feels like a fire hose. And because the benefit is inflation adjusted, that fire hose keeps its pressure for 3 decades or more. The bridge strategy is the mathematical answer to the question, how do I fund the 7-year healthcare gap without blowing up my subsidy? You spend down your portfolio in a controlled way, you let Social Security grow, and you come out the other side with a higher guaranteed income and a lower tax burden. The bridge solves the healthcare gap, but there is another piece, the vitality decade. The vitality decade is the one you probably never hear about in retirement planning, but it is the most important number you have not calculated. It is the decade from 58 to 68, and it is the most active, healthy, and capable decade of your entire retirement. You have energy, mobility, and the freedom to actually do things, travel, hobbies, time with people you care about. Money earned at 64 can be spent at 74, but the energy at 60 cannot be saved. You cannot bank the vitality of your 50s and 60s and deploy it later. It is a one-time resource, and it is the only thing you cannot buy back. Now look at what you are trading when you work past the crossover point you already saw. If your portfolio is already large enough that growth covers the healthcare gap, every additional year of work buys you roughly an extra $10,000 a year in retirement income. That is not nothing. But in exchange, you are burning one of those 7 vitality years. You are trading a year of your best health for a number on a spreadsheet that in all likelihood you will never need. The math of the crossover point says you are already done. The only reason you are still working is fear, not necessity. And here's the risk that makes the trade even more lopsided. The crossover math assumes a smooth 7% return, but the market does not cooperate. A 20% drop in your first year of retirement, and that happens roughly once every decade, turns the vitality decade into a damage control decade. You are not traveling or spending time with family. You are watching your portfolio recover while still paying those premiums. That extra year of work you are considering is not only buying $10,000 a year of income, it is buying insurance against the worst case scenario. But the insurance is overpriced if your portfolio is already past the crossover point. And there is another hidden cost of working past 58 that the retirement calculators never show you. The low-income years before required minimum distributions start are a tax planning window that disappears if you keep working. For someone born in 1967, turning 58 this year, required minimum distributions kick in at age 73, not 75. Zero Act raised the age to 73 for anyone turning 73 between 2023 and 2032. You are in that group. So you have roughly 15 years between 58 and 73 where your income can be deliberately low. Those years are the single best opportunity to do Roth conversions, realize capital gains at 0%, and manage your tax brackets. If you work until 65, you lose the first 7 of those years, and you compress your entire tax planning window into a smaller, more stressful time frame. The Vitality Decade is not a slogan. It is a real constraint on your life. The choice is clear. You can keep working, earn an extra $10,000 a year, and trade 7 years of your Vitality Decade. Or you can trust the math, use the bridge strategy, and walk away at 58 with a portfolio that grows through the healthcare gap. The only question left is whether you have the framework to know your exact date. That framework is what I built into the exit code. It is not based on opinion. It is based on 50 years of actual retirement data pulled from the IRS, the Social Security Administration, the KFF health insurance data, and the Bipartisan Policy Center studies. No shortcuts. Each number is stress tested against the worst the market has thrown at us. And the framework has 3 pillars that turn the crossover point from a theoretical concept into a specific date you can mark on your calendar. The first pillar is the lazy portfolio. It is a boring allocation total market index funds, a small bond position rebalanced once a year, dull enough to make you fall asleep. But over any 30-year window in the last 50 years, that portfolio has outperformed the average active trader who churns their holdings, pays fees, and reacts to every market headline. The data is overwhelming. The more you tinker, the less you keep. The lazy portfolio does not try to beat the market. It lets the market do the work. At a 7% real return, it compounds reliably through the healthcare gap. You do not need to pick winning stocks. You need to stop picking at all. The second pillar is the dynamic withdrawal method, which replaces the outdated 4% rule. The 4% rule was designed for a 30-year retirement starting at 65, with a static withdrawal amount adjusted for inflation. It never accounted for the market environment you actually face. The dynamic method does. In years when the market is up, you withdraw a little more. In years when it is down, you cut back. The difference is massive. The framework backtests this against every bear market in the last 50 years, 1973, 2008, and the dynamic method survives every single one. The 4% rule fails in those sequence of return scenarios. The dynamic method holds. And the third pillar is the stress test. The crossover point you saw earlier assumes a smooth 7% growth, but the market does not cooperate. A 20% drawdown in your first year of retirement, and that happens roughly once every decade, can turn a comfortable plan into a scramble if you have no buffer. The framework accounts for that. It asks, what happens if the market drops 30% in year 1? What if it takes 5 years to recover? The answer is that the margin you built, the gap between your portfolio and your healthcare costs, is what saves you. The framework calculates that margin in advance. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The math is on your side, but only if you stop ignoring it. Check the link in the description for the full framework, and you will see exactly why 58 is the real exit window. You stop ignoring it. Check the link in the description for the full framework, and you will see exactly why 58 is the real exit window.